Hi, let's ban boring portraits. I'm Flash from theImageIcon.com. If you're new to photographing people, or you've been doing them for years, there is always something to learn about composition. In this video, I'm going to share with you a simple portrait composition technique. Now, if you are into portraits, you probably already know about the rule of thirds. That's where you imagine your frame divided into 9 equal parts, and then you place points of interest in the intersections of those lines. For portraits, we often want to look at the eyes as the point of interest, and so we would place those eyes on one of those intersection lines. The problem is that it can get boring putting people in the same position over and over again. So today, I'm going to share with you an alternative to the rule of thirds that I find really helpful. I recently did a photo shoot with a model, and while I was thinking about the rule of thirds, I thought, why don't I do something just a little bit different? So I started looking at my viewfinder, and I noticed that I could get a nice composition if I put the side of her face along the top third line of the image. In this case, I've got her shoulder on the left, third line. And what I like about this is it brings a little bit of interest to the image because we're not centered, but also not off to the side. And I love this horizontal composition. This technique works with landscape orientation or vertical orientation. So next I decided to try it the other way. Here I've got her nose along the bottom third line and her eye looking up towards the top right. The great thing about this is instead of having to worry about placing the eye on a third line, I now have 2 eyes to play with. In fact, this might be even better because we can lead the viewer's eye from one eye to the other, and then they will scan back over her nose and along the bottom third line. Another advantage to this composition style is that it gives you some flexibility in your crop. So I can crop in tightly and still have a nice horizontal composition. The only thing you need to watch out for is if you're going to crop in tightly, don't crop too tight. You still want to see enough of that face to know that it is a person. One of the reasons I like this technique is that it works with a variety of focal lengths. With longer focal lengths, you get more compression, and that makes the background narrower. So this works well for headshots or tighter portraits. If you go with shorter focal lengths, you get more of the scene in the background, and that works well for environmental portraits. A common mistake I see in portraits is having the subject too close to the camera or the background too close to the subject. If you use this composition technique, it naturally helps you pull back a bit and add more scene in the background. A wide-angle lens, such as a 24 to 50 millimeters, allows you to capture more of the environment around your subject and help tell the story of where the photo was taken. Portrait lenses, like an 85 millimeters, compress the background and help separate your subject from the background. Okay, now that we've got the composition part down, let's talk about a few other things that I think are important in portraits. As an experienced photographer, I spend half of my time during a photo shoot with my camera up and half of my time talking with the subject. I find it's critical to take the time to communicate with your subject. It's especially important if you're working with someone who isn't a professional model, because the person needs to feel comfortable. Take the time to chat with your subject before you start snapping away with the camera. Make them feel at ease. Ask them questions about their interests. Get them to relax, tell jokes, do whatever you need to do to put them at ease. For example, on this particular shoot, I brought my dog Luna along, and so we had a little furry friend to help us relax and have fun. Where you position your subject and how they pose can make or break a portrait. Unless your subject is a professional model, they probably won't know how to pose. If your subject is a professional model, then all bets are off. They will know how to pose, and so they will tell you what to do. But for non-models, I find it best to be very specific with your directions. If you want to try to get more candid shots, that can be done, but it takes a lot more time and effort. You may need to roam around with your subject and talk with them, or joke around with them, or distract them with a variety of things until you can capture those natural shots. So sometimes you just need to throw a lot of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. One of my favorite tools that I bring on every portrait shoot is a reflector. Reflectors come in a variety of colors, but I prefer the white ones. There are a variety of ways you can use a reflector. For example, if the sun is behind you and you're shooting towards the backlit head, shoulder and eye, you can hold your reflector up next to the subject's face to help fill the shadows on the face. Another technique is to place the reflector on the opposite side of the sun. By placing the reflector close to the ground, it will bounce light back onto your subject and brighten the shadows. So if you have the sun behind you and you want to lighten up the shadows on the background, then you can place the reflector on the same side as the sun and aim the light from the reflector towards the background. Finally, if you want to punch through the shadows and really brighten up your background, you can place the reflector between the sun and the background and aim it towards the background. So next time you're doing portraits, Try this composition technique. It's a little bit different than the rule of thirds, and I think it creates some interesting images. If you found this video deserving, give it a like, and it will be shared with even more photographers. Also, remember to subscribe so you get notified the moment I post a new video. I hope you can use this technique the next time you go out and do portraits. Hope to see you all soon. Have lots of fun taking great portraits. Please subscribe and give this a thumbs up.